The Kingdom of Tungning, Taiwan under the Zheng regime. Good morning. Today, I'm going to talk about a fascinating and important chapter in Taiwan's history, the period of the Zheng regime, also known as the Kingdom of Tungning or Ming Zheng period, which lasted from 1661 to 1683. Although it only lasted 23 years, this era marked the first time that a Han Chinese government ruled Taiwan. It was a time of hope, resistance, ambition, and ultimately, tragedy. In this speech, I'll guide you through its founding, development, leadership, cultural impact, foreign relations, internal struggles, and final collapse. 1. What was the Kingdom of Tungning? The Kingdom of Tungning was founded by Zheng Chenggong, also known as Koxinga, after he defeated the Dutch in 1662. His goal was to use Taiwan as a base to fight back against the Qing Dynasty and restore the Ming Dynasty in China. The Zheng regime ruled Taiwan as an independent Chinese kingdom, loyal in name to the southern Ming emperor. It included 3 generations of rulers: Zheng Chenggong, Koxinga; Zheng Jing, his son; Zheng Chenggong, his grandson. To the Chinese Qing government, they were rebels. To the Koreans, they were a foreign kingdom. To Europeans, they were the Kingdom of Formosa, or the Kingdom of Tungning. But to the people who followed them, they were the last hope of the fallen Ming. 2. Zheng Chenggong's rule, 1661 to 1662. After taking Taiwan from the Dutch in 1662, Koxinga began building his kingdom. He kept many Ming traditions, such as the imperial court system. He honored the Ming royal family, built palaces, and renamed Tainan as Dongdu Mingjing, meaning Eastern Capital of the Bright Ming. He organized the land into 2 counties and used a military strategy called Soldiers Farm the Land, combining military and agricultural systems. Soldiers were given land to farm in exchange for service. However, Zheng's expansion caused conflict with indigenous peoples. His troops invaded native lands and clashed with powerful groups like the Kingdom of Dadu. This limited his control mostly to southwestern Taiwan. Sadly, just 13 months after arriving in Taiwan, Zheng Chenggong died at age 38, possibly due to illness and stress. His death left the kingdom in a fragile state. 3. Zheng Jing's rule, 1662 to 1681. After Zheng Chenggong's sudden death, a power struggle broke out. Eventually, his son Zheng Jing took power. He renamed the capital, Dongning, and set up his government at Fort Zeelandia, which the Dutch had built. Under his rule, Taiwan enjoyed a period of peace and development. Zheng Jing's top advisor, Chen Yonghua, helped him improve administration, support farming, manage taxes, and keep order. Land was divided into public, private, and military farms, and Taiwan became a place of refuge and recovery after years of war. Zheng Jing also expanded trade. He traded with Japan, importing silver and weapons. Europe, especially the British East India Company, which trained his army and provided Western cannons. Qing China, through illegal trade routes. In 1668, he even retook Keelung, the last Dutch-held base in northern Taiwan. For a time, Taiwan was described as a land of peace and prosperity. 4. Foreign relations and military campaigns. In 1674, when the Qing faced internal rebellion, the revolt of the 3 feudatories, Zheng Jing saw a chance. He sent troops to Fujian and Guangdong in China to expand his territory. But he failed to work closely with his allies, and when they surrendered to the Qing, Zheng's armies lost everything. By 1680, he was forced to abandon all mainland bases and focus only on Taiwan. This was a turning point. From now on, the Zheng regime would rule only Taiwan. In a letter from a Qing general, the Qing even said they were willing to let the Zhengs keep Taiwan, as long as they stayed out of China. But Zheng Jing refused. Later, however, exhausted and discouraged, he began to drink, write poetry, and ignore politics. He died in 1681 at age 40. 5. The tragedy of succession, the fall of the court. Zheng Jing had named his eldest son Zheng Chenggong as heir, but internal conflicts changed everything. Another son, Zheng Chenggong, had been acting as Prince Regent, and was well liked for being smart and capable. But after Zheng Jing died, political enemies spread rumors that he was not really a Zheng. Within days, he was arrested and secretly murdered. His wife committed suicide soon after. The Queen Mother, filled with regret, died months later. In the end, Zheng Chenggong, only 12 years old, became king, but the real power was in the hands of officials and generals, especially Feng Shifan and Lu Guoxian. The once strong kingdom was now divided and weak. 6. The end of the Zheng regime, 1683. In 1683, the Qing Dynasty decided it was time to finish the Zheng regime for good. A former Ming general who had surrendered to the Qing, Shi Lang, led the attack. His plan was the same one used by Zheng Chenggong: take Penghu, the pescadores, first. In July 1683, the Qing navy defeated Lu Guoxian in the Battle of Penghu. The Zheng military lost its last chance to fight back. In September, Zheng Chenggong and his court surrendered. Many members of the Ming royal family also surrendered. One prince, Zhu Shugui, committed suicide in traditional Ming robes. On October 8, the Qing officially took over Taiwan. The Kingdom of Tungning was over. Taiwan became part of the Qing Empire, beginning a new chapter in its history. 7. The legacy of the Zheng regime. So, what did the Kingdom of Tungning leave behind? It was Taiwan's first Han Chinese government. Before this, Taiwan had been ruled by indigenous peoples, the Dutch, and the Spanish, but never by a Chinese kingdom. It planted the seeds of Chinese culture on the island. Confucian temples, Ming laws, Chinese education, and mass immigration all began in this period. It created a local identity. Many of Koxinga's followers were Ming loyalists, but after settling in Taiwan, they began to see it as a new homeland, separate from Qing-ruled China. It turned Taiwan into a political player. The Zheng regime had foreign trade, international diplomacy, and military ambitions. Even though the Zhengs failed to restore the Ming, their rule helped shape the foundation of modern Taiwanese society. The historical significance of the Ming Zheng Dynasty. 1. The first Han Chinese regime in Taiwan. Before the Ming Zheng period, Taiwan had been ruled by indigenous tribes, the Dutch, and briefly the Spanish. But in 1662, Zheng Chenggong, Koxinga, defeated the Dutch and created the first Han Chinese regime on the island. But in 1662, Zheng Chenggong, Koxinga, defeated the Dutch and created the first Han Chinese regime on the island. This was the first time Taiwan was governed by a Chinese-style government, complete with Ming laws, Confucian rituals, and administrative divisions. The Zheng regime was loyal to the fallen Ming Dynasty, and it used Taiwan as a base to try to restore the Ming in mainland China. Even though the dream of restoring the Ming failed, the regime gave Taiwan a new political identity, one that was proudly Chinese, but also separate from the Qing Empire. 2. A refuge for Ming loyalists and Chinese culture. The fall of the Ming Dynasty caused great sadness among many people in southern China. When the Qing took power, many refused to accept Manchu rule. Thousands of officials, scholars, soldiers, and families fled to Taiwan with Zheng Chenggong and his followers. These people brought with them Ming-style education and government, Confucian temples and customs, Chinese farming techniques and trade. This group formed a strong Han Chinese immigrant society in Taiwan, which slowly began to replace indigenous systems and cultures. Taiwan became a cultural shelter, preserving traditions that were being lost in Qing-ruled China. In this way, the Zheng regime helped build the foundation of Chinese culture in Taiwan, a legacy that remains strong today. 3. A symbol of anti-Qing resistance and local identity. To many, the Zheng regime was a symbol of resistance, the last true force that refused to bow to the Qing. They were not just running away, they were fighting to keep their beliefs and their identity. At the same time, being cut off from the mainland made many people in Taiwan see the island as their new home. Over time, they developed a local sense of identity that was still Chinese but also different, independent, resilient, and rooted in Taiwan's soil. This mix of loyalty to tradition and growing local pride would become a core part of Taiwan's historical character. 4. A period of economic and diplomatic growth. Even though the Zheng regime was always preparing for war, it also tried hard to build a functioning economy. They encouraged farming through military-led colonization. They promoted trade with Japan, Southeast Asia, and even Western countries like England. They imported weapons and metal from Japan and invited the British East India Company to trade in Taiwan. This made Taiwan not only a stronghold but also a trading hub. Even though the regime was small, it acted like a real country, doing business, forming alliances, and managing its people. This experience helped Taiwan later become an important player in regional and global trade. 5. A turning point in indigenous history. The Ming Zheng period also marked a major change for Taiwan's indigenous peoples. Before the arrival of Han Chinese settlers, many indigenous communities had their own land, culture, and independence. But as Zheng's soldiers and families settled and farmed the land, conflicts broke out. The regime pushed deep into indigenous territories, which caused wars and resistance, especially in places like the Kingdom of Dadu. The result was a slow loss of land and influence for many indigenous groups. It was the beginning of a long period of decline for native power in Taiwan, something that historians now view as a tragic consequence of the rise of Chinese rule. 6. A short-lived but powerful legacy. In the end, the Zheng regime couldn't survive. In 1683, the Qing sent a powerful navy and defeated them in the Battle of Penghu. The last king, Zheng Chenggong, surrendered, and Taiwan became part of the Qing Empire. But even though it ended in defeat, the legacy of the Kingdom of Tungning lived on. It showed that Taiwan could support a Chinese-style government. It helped define Taiwan as a place with political importance, not just a remote island. It started the deep roots of Han Chinese culture in Taiwan. It helped create a local identity that was proud, flexible, and unique. Conclusion. The story of the Kingdom of Tungning is full of courage, idealism, and tragedy. It began with a dream, to restore a lost dynasty, but it ended in betrayal and defeat. Yet, those 23 years left a deep mark. From the battles with the Dutch to the peaceful farms of Dongning, from the rise of local government to the fall of a boy king, this period shows how Taiwan was never just a side story in Asian history, it was a central stage. Thank you for listening.